Hello everyone, you are listening to the Maitri podcast Between Friends Conversations with Maitri. This is your host Nandini Ray with my production team member Daman Tiwana welcoming you all to this meaningful discussion. April is Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. And each year, during the month of April, community-based organizations, rape crisis centers, government agencies, businesses, school, campuses, and individuals plan events and activities to highlight sexual violence as a public health crisis, a social justice issue, and human rights violation. Today, we are doing this show to commemorate Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. Sexual violence and abuse is a serious societal problem, and we can discuss this topic from various angles, such as sexual harassment, rape culture, sexual abuse and violence perpetrated by strangers, co-workers, friends, family members, and intimate partners. But we cannot discuss all the aspects in one episode, so we have decided that today we will mostly focus on sexual violence and abuse in intimate partner relationships. In our work, we have seen sexual violence and abuse in an intimate partner relationship is not an isolated incident, and it often occurs alongside other forms of abusive behavior, including physical and emotional abuse. And if we really want to prevent this abuse, this behavior, then the first step is we must make this issue a topic for community discussion. We must not shy away. And that's exactly what we are going to do today. To discuss this very important community issue, we have invited Sarah Khan. Sarah is the Director of Programs at the Asian Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violence. She oversees the coordination and administration of all aspects of government, public, and privately funded API-GBV programs. She also manages and supervises all programmatic areas of technical assistance and training, and designs and evaluates programs and processes. She acts as a subject matter expert on various training and research topics. Sarah has been working almost 20 years in the advocacy field in ending gender-based violence and domestic violence. Sarah, I want to add here that you are an inspiration for many of us in this advocacy field, and I have learned a lot from you. So it's an honor for me to have you on this show. Welcome to this show.
Hi, Nandini. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. And I want to say it's my honor to be here, showcased here on the Maitri podcast, because Maitri has been my first family here in the Bay Area. And as you said, April is such an important month. All months are important. And like Maitri has been doing this job forever, it's not things that happen once in a while, right? I mean, these things keep happening throughout, but it's always important to focus and take a nuanced look at something. So thank you for inviting me.
Sexual violence and abuse is, we all know we work with survivors and it's traumatic experience for all victims, but it is always an underreported crime. Yes, recently we are seeing many survivors are coming forward with their accounts of sexual assault and harassment, and we are seeing Me Too movement, but still sexual violence is much underreported. And especially when this is happening within an intimate partner relationship. And both of us are South Asian here. And Sarah, we know that sex and sexuality is a taboo topic in our community. And in most South Asian families, we don't educate our children about what is toxic relationship versus what is healthy sexual relationships. And schools in most South Asian countries are not that equipped in providing sex education. At least I can talk about India. I came from India, and in my family, it was not an open discussion. And the school I went to, I didn't have any sex education. I think we have very limited knowledge in these subjects, and it is not easy to identify whether a sexual encounter in an intimate partner relationship is abuse or not. So, Sarah, my question to you is how can one identify whether a sexual encounter in an intimate partner relationship is an abuse?
You raised up so many important points. So I'll start by saying, yes, you and I identify as cisgendered women, and we both are immigrants to this country. So that is one aspect. And then the second part, again, you spoke about is around sexual violence and the fact that it is highly underreported. And then whatever does get reported, oftentimes based on media, based on what learnings, based on what empowerment and or defense we have, is usually stranger danger, right? That someone who is going to come, someone we don't know is the one who's going to abuse us. The reality, though, is that the majority of sexual violence happen between two people who know each other, and oftentimes it isn't an intimate relationship. It could be with someone you're in love with. Again, I identify as a cisgendered woman. I know we at Maitri right now have been getting calls mostly from women. But when we talk about sexual violence, I'm going to speak across the gender spectrum. So it is between two people, wherever they fall on the gender scale. And then one more reason why it is important is that yes, you and I are immigrants. A lot of people that we know are immigrants, but we are also raising kids here. And then the reality is that if there is 1 in 4 or 1 in 6 people, person are going to get assaulted here in the United States, the chances are it's someone we know. So it is very important. It's imperative for us to think about what it is that we are going to hand out to our kids. What lessons? Is it the same lessons that we learned, or are they going to be different lessons? So when we're talking about sexual violence in an intimate relationship, it can be as clear as a forcible sexual assault in which you say no and fight back, and someone and your partner says no, nothing doing, it's my right. Sex in itself and sexuality in itself, for it to be healthy, it has to be an enjoyable time had by both partners. And there is no one size fit all for all, right? I mean, people have sex in very different ways. What is comfortable for one may not be comfortable for another. The key word here is consent. If your partner does something like has sex with you when you're not interested, and okay, you're in a bad mood or you're like, no, not now or whatever, but it is a need that is fulfilled by, but it is a need sometimes that you have sex with your partner just so that they feel comfortable. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about consent, the gut feeling when your partner is pressuring you into certain sex acts that make you really uncomfortable. That discomfort should not be there in an intimate relationship, should definitely not be there during sex. There can also be something as sly as tampering with your contraceptive, or can also do anything like maybe they can lie and withhold information about their sexual partners and or the fact that they may have disease, or they may want you to watch some porn, which a lot of people do watch together and it's a source of enjoyment. What I'm trying to get at is like when it makes you uncomfortable, then that is a form of an abuse because it doesn't just play with you physically, it plays with you mentally, emotionally, and you may not feel safe in that relationship.
What I'm hearing that people, if they are not comfortable, they feel pressured, then they should know that it is not normal, it is abuse. As you said, one size may not fit for all. I mean, some people, whatever comfortable for person A may not be comfortable for person B. So it is most important to have consent. And, that's a very helpful information. But sexual violence or abuse, when it is happening within an intimate partner relationship, it is very hard to prove that it's an abuse, no matter how traumatizing that experience is. There can be a lot of ambiguities and misconception. In all patriarchal culture, so women get messages directly or indirectly from society or family that family reputation is depending on women's sexual behavior. They have responsibility to, at least South Asian culture, we are told that you have responsibility to procreate. Or sometimes even some women, they get a message that they have to keep their male partners happy. At the same time, they're also getting a message that sex is a private thing and very private thing, and we women shouldn't be discussing anything about it, even if we feel uncomfortable. So it is very much possible that someone can get confused when they are abused by their partner, whether they can talk about it, whether they can report it. But say someone is ready to report, someone decides that, yes, I will report it. Then what steps should a victim take to report the abuse?
Well, first of all, no one needs to process this alone. And no way am I advocating for someone to report or not report. If you think you have experienced sexual violence, just know that you don't have to process and face it alone. That is the big piece of it. There are resources out there. And contrary to popular belief, agencies, organizations that are there to help you process don't force you to go and report. And it's not to end your marriage. It is for you to decide or to end your relationship. It is for you to decide and process and feel safe in your sexuality, in your body, and in your relationship. So consider reaching out if you feel that you have experienced this violence. Consider reaching out to maybe your local rape crisis hotline just for emotional support or information on medical care and counseling. You may or may not choose to report. That choice is always 100% up to you. No one will make you think otherwise. You can request medical care. You can also request a rape case after a sexual assault and do not have to involve the police, because that is also the culture piece of it. You don't want to involve the police, and that is okay. Just ask your local advocates for guidance and support.
I intentionally asked you this question because many people, they think that if I call an agency, then the incident is automatically reported to police. So they should know, people should know that if they are calling any agency to find out their options and rights, or just to vent out, it is confidential. For example, whoever is calling Maitri, we keep all the calls confidential and we provide information and support that the callers need. So thank you, Sarah, for saying so beautifully that it's not that if you are calling an agency, that doesn't mean that automatically it will be reported to police. It's up to you. So if you think that I need to call police, it's up to you. If you think, no, I right now I need to call an agency and find out my options, that's up to you. And no matter what you think, all agencies will support you. Whoever working with rape crisis or domestic violence or intimate partner violence or sexual violence, they will support you. We are here to support you.
अगर आप या कोई और जिसे आप जानते हैं जो घरेलू और डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस से गुजर रहे हैं, कृपया मैत्री से संपर्क करें। मैत्री की सेवाएं बिल्कुल मुफ्त और विश्वसनीय हैं। हमारी सेवाएं हिंदी, पंजाबी, मराठी, गुजराती और अन्य दक्षिण एशियाई भाषाओं में उपलब्ध हैं। You can call us Monday to Friday 9 to 3 p.m. on 188-862-4874. For after hours, leave voicemail in your language. You can also email us at maitri, maitri@maitri.org.
Another thing I was thinking that, whether it is domestic violence or sexual assault, where mostly women are victims. I'm not saying that men cannot be victims. So we get calls from males too. But statistics wise, we see that mostly women are victims. And all the times girls are told that don't wear revealing clothes, don't go out in the night, and don't do this, don't do that, to avoid sexual harassment and abuse. But when the abuse is happening inside the closed doors perpetrated by your own partner, then what? Even if someone shares their pain with their friends and family members, many times they are shushed. They're told that, oh, this is your personal matter. How can I intervene? Or are you sure you are not making things up? Or as a wife, it is your duty to please your partner. Something like that. In domestic violence cases, we always see that is happening, that victim blaming. Did you do something to provoke that abuse? Or maybe your partner is so overwhelmed with work and now work pressure, that's why your partner slapped you or pushed you. Many times we see victim are blamed, and no, many people, they are not holding perpetrators accountable. So why is that, and what can we do about it?
Oh my goodness, this topic, we can talk about this for years, right? And victim blaming is absolutely such a common response to survivors. And it has many, many roots: shame, stigma, ignorance, sexism, prejudice, upholding male patriarchy, tying, tying your family's honor to the vagina, which has nothing to do with your family honor to begin with. All cultures, and I know we talk mostly about South Asian, but take any culture, all have elements of victim blaming when it comes to sexual violence. And all cultures also have a way of standing up to it, right? So what you said, like we always do this, like, doesn't matter. Sexual violence, just like domestic violence, just like other forms of gender-based violence, finds its way in power. This is a litmus test I always ask folks to do. I mean, if I am very frustrated, I could also be frustrated at work or home or wherever. Do I hit? Do I abuse? My point is, like, that is power, because you can abuse your child, because you can abuse who you perceive to be the weaker partner in the relationship. Same thing with violence. That is your sexual violence. That is your way of exerting control. We can address victim blaming in our community definitely through dialogue like what we are having right now, so that people can talk, through education, through outreach, through letting survivors know that sexual violence is never their fault. And that is something we have to have this conversation with our community members, that there is never a justification for sexual violence. Doesn't matter if you were drunk. Doesn't matter if you were frustrated. There is no excuse for sexual violence. And I say that when people get raped, whether in a relationship or outside, and by rape, I mean not having sex with a minor. I mean, people have languages for all sorts of things, but the basic end is rape, whether in a relationship or out. Doesn't matter if you're in a bikini or a burqa. It does not matter if you are drunk or the person was drunk. I mean, what does a 6-month-old baby know? Right? How did they tempt somebody? So it's definitely a worldview that we have to change. And as a community, we have to say there is no justification for sexual violence.
I think also we have to focus on the stereotyped patriarchal idea of women and sex. Like, women cannot say yes to sex. So if they say yes, they are perceived as sluts. They have to say no. It is assumed that even if they are saying no, that means they are saying yes. And such stereotyped idea can mislead men into believing that they should ignore a woman's protest or no. And we hugely miss the concept of consent. And I think we have to do a lot of work in prevention field just to raise awareness, just to have the conversation that what is consent. Legally, for example, marital rape wasn't a crime in this country, in every state until 1993. And today, many states still have marital rape loopholes in certain sexual assault laws. And such change must come from all levels, like judiciary level, community level, institutional level, individual level, family level. Then probably one day we will see something change.
You know, one of the things that you cannot see properly right now, but if I turn around, you will see my face, both sides. Half of my face, actually from my eye down to my chin, is artificial. I've had 10 multiple jaw surgeries, and I don't feel my face. I've had ribs, bones grafted, thrown out. I've had different metals put in. In the process, I've lost all my nerves. I only have the ability to blink a little bit and move my mouth, but that will go in the next surgery. This is because a man was so enraged. All he could do was punch me and kick me in my face to make himself feel like a man. I would hear other elders or women would say, oh, it'll get better when you have children. Or it'll get better when you have a son. I had a girl it got worse. I had a boy, it got worse. I had another girl, another boy. It never got better. I thought I could use my kids to buy time that he wouldn't abuse me at night, because most of my abuse happened at night. And if I was busy feeding or changing or busy with the children, maybe he'll fall asleep. But you know what happened is, as the children grew, he started to use the children against me. And he began to brainwash them and say things like, do you want a new mommy? This mommy isn't nice, isn't she? She disciplined you. She was mean to you. So the children reluctantly would say yes. So he would say, what should we do to her? Should we just kill her? Who wants to light the fire first? And he would get the children so wired into thinking that if we burnt her, he'll get them a new mommy who will be so nice and give them so much love, and that I was the evil one. So the children slowly began to turn on me because they found him, the loving one, the powerful one, the decision maker, and they saw how helpless I was and how powerful he was. I was a woman who was sexually abused. I was a woman who my husband wanted to traffic me so that he could make money. He, for the first time, I'm saying it on your program, he said to me, here's the list of what you do and how much you ask, how much you charge for his services. This was a man, a husband trafficking his wife, a mother of his 4 children. I am telling women, you may not have any physical injuries. A lot of it is hidden, but those are injuries. Those are abuse. Abuse doesn't have to be that you're black and blue and you're broken to prove it. Women, wake up. Abuse is words spoken over you to make you think that you are the one who's going psycho. When you don't want sex, that it's forced on you. And you are too ashamed to report it or talk about it or take action. But today, let's all stand together and say, I am a victim of sexual abuse. I'm a victim of sexual torture, actually, where my husband would strip me, tie me, my hands, my feet would be tied. He would sodomize me. He would urinate on me. I'm sorry to be so explicit on this program, but I want women to know that so many of our sisters have died suffering this and could not say a word. And if people hear my story and cringe, but if I was to get you one of those dead women and ask you their final moments, they would tell you horrific that they begged, they thought of their loved ones as they took their last breath. And I am here with an artificial jaw, making changes, empowering women, telling the abusers, whether it be female or male, it's not okay and there's consequences. And I'm telling those silent ones that are listening and not doing anything, that your silence is enabling them. It's time we all stood up for one another.
What do you think? How can all of us take part in prevention effort, individually as well as a member of our community?
I thought it was really interesting when you brought this marital rape clause up, right? We are in California. We are supposed to be a liberal state. You know that California is still one of those states where they have a different law for marital rape as opposed to non-marital rape. And a person who commits marital rape does not have to register as a sex offender. And we're talking 2021. But how can each one of us take steps to stop sexual violence and to support survivors? So each one of us have have loved ones who are survivors. And I think oftentimes we don't know about it. I'll think about myself. When I was growing up, it was always told to me, this doesn't happen in our family. And when I was working at Metri, we learned that about a lot of things. Every community said that this, whatever that this may be, doesn't happen in that particular community.
Yes.
But the reality of it is it happens in every community, every class, every religion, every strata, every gender orientation, right? Especially if it's this 1 in 4 that gets raped, we have to have known someone. When I went away to college and I was in the dorm, that's when you have a different relationship with people than what you have when you are a day scholar. And suddenly I met all these girls who all knew, and I'm sure even you do know of this one uncle, and I'm using the term uncle in quotes, who was a creepy uncle, right?
Yes.
And we all know of people like that. And yet we push our kids to go give a hug, to go give a kiss, to go do this, to go do that, to be quiet, to be respectful. Media justifies it. Your no means yes, which is not true, right? So when I'm saying to each one of us can take individual steps, it all starts within. Can we all say, can you and I at least promise that we will not raise our sons that way? I know we both have sons, right? Why is it that boys will be boys when they are 4, when they are 6 and they pull a girl's hair, it's said, oh, that's because he likes you. Then he shoves her and that is okay. And then when they get older, then suddenly it becomes rape. Who's told the boy to act any different? The message the males or whoever the dominant partner are getting are that this is accepted behavior. So we all have loved ones who are survivors. So the more we speak out against sexual violence and the more we say, no, this is wrong behavior, consent, whether you are teaching for things or anti-bullying, I'm talking about in this country now because we are here, and or against racism, the same way we have to teach about sex and teach about what consent is and why it is important and why, like my body, my place, like don't touch and don't accept it with someone else. And the more our loved ones will trust us as safe people for disclosure and help seeking, the more they will come out. And that way we can take steps to support survivors and stop sexual violence by educating ourselves, by responding to survivors with compassion, not necessarily through a systemic way. And we can build our skills for both preventing and intervening in sexual violence.
And what you touched, I really think that when we are communicating with our children, we first of all we need to show them that we are a good role model, like what we believe in, what we are preaching, we are really practicing it. So that is one thing. And another thing is, I believe that we need to have an open communication with our children, that what is wrong and what is right. And if they know that from the very beginning, maybe they will understand when they're old enough to understand. Also, sometimes the compassion, the empathy, we also need to introduce this with our children, that if someone is having some pain, and so that you can be supportive to that person. If your friends are going through some trauma, you can be their support, not to judge them or not to ridicule them. And because in middle school, high school, ultimately they're kids, they don't know what is right and what is wrong unless we adults teach them or share with them.
Actually, if you notice, kids are born so sweet and gentle and generous and giving. Yes, they fight. All this bullying is learned behavior from adults. So I think we take away, unfortunately, the compassion by telling boys, like subscribing these gender roles, you be quiet, to girls should sit a certain way, dress in pink, boys should not cry. Like we are the ones who prescribe these gender roles and behaviors, and then the rest they get from media and other folks. I think notice basically kids, they are very gentle, so we fiddling with them.
Yes, you are absolutely true. Absolutely right. I'm hoping that all who are listening, all people who are listening our show today, they will see if they have any bias, if they are doing the right thing, and they will internalize that their responsibility to be a good role model and to have an open communication with their children, to find out what they are thinking. And what you pointed out, Sarah, that's also very true, that many times if a child is complaining that I don't want to go to that person, But we, as parents, sometimes we tell them, why not? They're our good friends. So go and hug that person. Or so we may not sometimes understand that maybe the child is trying to say something, and we have to pay attention. We have to support our children when they are trying to say something, that if they're not happy about something, or if they're feeling some uncomfortable experience.
Kids have great intuition, and unfortunately, we take away their intuition, whether it is because of food, whether it is with regards to their own bodies, their boundaries. We culturally step in, and then it's like, oh, you're very Western. I mean, that child sexual abuse is a whole another gamut, and they are wonderful people. I am not equipped to talk about them. But basic, my body, my consent for anybody, children, regardless of what gender they are, is so important, and which then helps stop violence later on.
Yeah. So we have discussed that so far we are trying sending out a message to our community that how important prevention is. But let's talk about that if someone is already going through some trauma, or if someone is already abused and they want to find any resources. So can you share a couple of resources that can provide free and confidential help to survivors of sexual violence and abuse?
Absolutely. So then, well, any rape crisis center, right? Or you can always go to rainn.org, which is, I think it's rape and incest, rainn.org. Or you can also go here in the Bay, you can go to Asian Women's Shelter. You already in Santa Clara County have the Y. Nationally, I really like the work personally of this organization called Heart Women and Girls. They do a lot of work. What I like about their work is that they do a lot of work with youth, and they do a lot of work around education and prevention rather than intervention. I'm sure they do intervention as well. And then there's always the National Organization of Asian and Pacific Islanders Ending Sexual Violence, NEPASEV. That is another agency that can help.
Yeah, and listeners who are listening now, and if it is too confusing for you to remember all those names, please call Maitri Helpline. It's 1-888-862-4874 or 1-888-8 Maitri, Maitri. You can call us and you can tell us your location, and we can provide you your local agency. And you don't have to even share your name and any identification, any identity. You just call us and you just tell us what you need, what kind of information you need, and we will provide that.
I just want to add that it is upon each one of us to stop violence. And I would just say, like, treat other people the way that you wish that you would be treated, right? And violence should not have any space in our society now. So please, each one of you stand up for someone else in your life.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for taking time from your busy schedule and coming to our show. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I really hope our listeners will continue this much needed discussion with their friends and families. It will not end here, and we will do more shows on this topic. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Please keep listening to our show and find all our episodes on SoundCloud, Google, Apple, Spotify, and other podcast apps. Please search Between Friends Conversations with Maitri. Please inform your friends and families about this podcast, where we present meaningful discussions on important community issues that matter to our community and that impact partner relationships and family dynamics. Our guests always share new perspectives, important information, and resources in preventing gender-based violence, domestic violence, and abuse. That's all for today. We will soon return with another robust discussion. Till then, stay safe and stay happy. Thank you.
This show is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as legal advice. Always consult an attorney for legal advice. Views expressed by guests of the radio show are individual opinions and not endorsed by Maitri.
Starting this May, Maitri is hosting a curated speaker series where inspiring women will speak candidly about their successes, their careers, their life as immigrants, and much more. Attend these free and live webinars to listen to and engage in conversations with the speakers on topics related to individual financial security and success in careers. These workshops will be hosted first Saturdays of every month starting May till October from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. For registration, email eep@maitri.org. See you there.
अगर आप या कोई और जिसे आप जानते हैं जो घरेलू और डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस से गुजर रहे हैं, कृपया मैत्री से संपर्क करें। मैत्री की सेवाएं बिल्कुल मुफ्त और विश्वसनीय हैं। हमारी सेवाएं हिंदी, पंजाबी, मराठी, गुजराती और अन्य दक्षिण एशियाई भाषाओं में उपलब्ध हैं। You can call us Monday to Friday 9 to 3 p.m. on 188-862-4874. For after hours, leave voicemail in your language. You can also email us at maitri@maitri.org.